any department head announcements?
Yes, just briefly, I think you mentioned to Mr. Gary Coates this evening, but Mr. Coates has agreed to come on the third meeting of February 2021 and present or give us an update on some of the progress and the property owners he's been speaking with. I guess it's called the Southside Road area. So he'll be here with the presentation on that. That'll be an interactive workshop kind of thing. We're not asking for a resolution or any action by the Planning Commission with that. Also, next month will be the rotation of the chair to vice chair and et cetera. And we'll also set the calendar for the balance of the year on Planning Commission meeting dates. Right now that stands and is drafted in as the third Wednesday of each month, and we'll look at it so that we can navigate November and December to your needs. So that's coming back. There are several items queuing up to come on the 21st. Although I don't have them agendized, and I'll need to be fully sure with my staff that we're ready to go on that. But we'll have the workshop item, and we'll do some of the housekeeping business with the rotation of the chair and the meeting calendar.
Great. Thank you. Okay. I will now open it up for public comment. This is the part of the agenda. If anyone in the audience would like to address the Planning Commission on items that are not on the agenda, please come up to the podium. No speaker cards? Okay. All right, then let's move on to the consent, which includes the acknowledgement of public hearings, certificate of posting, and the draft minutes. Thank you for the minutes. Appreciate that.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay. Is there anyone from the public that would like to pull any items from the consent calendar? All right. It's any members of the commission? I will entertain a motion then.
If I could, we did just notice that the motion on the second to last page, their motion was made by blank and seconded by blank at the Fairview Corners. Item B continued. And Deputy Clerk Janet Slimsager has captured those. So what do we fill in those blanks?
The motion was made by Pierce and seconded by Slotkin on that item.
Okay.
Thank you. That would complete edits to the agenda.
Okay.
To the minutes.
To the minutes. Okay. Do I have a motion?
Move we accept with changes.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? So ordered. Okay. Let's move on to the regular agenda, and we will open up the continuance of the public hearing on the vested tentative subdivision map on Fairview Corners. I know that we want to continue this item again, but because it's been before us, I believe 3 times now, I think maybe the commission, if we have anything we want to add or questions we have, this is the time we should really discuss it so staff understands where we are. So does anyone have anything?
Do you want to open it up first? Or?
I thought I did. Okay, I'll open it up.
Okay. I was looking through the EIR, and it looks very dated, and I was wanting to talk to Tevin and see what elements, in particular the traffic plan and traffic study, would be first on the list. And then also wondering if we can take the traffic study and take it into the real world instead of turns and right turns, left turns, and all this, and see, is there a way we can get a vision out of the traffic plan that would say, okay, how is this going to affect the main arteries of 25, 156, and if there's some protocol that we can arrive at to search that kind of report out, because we get a lot of these, so many rights and so many lefts, and we'll need to have a deceleration lane, and it talks very much about specific to right at the front door of the project, but we've got other problems, and we need to, I think, start looking at least, if not addressing those. And then Tavin's maybe response back to if he feels other parts of the EIR might need to be updated as well, because it's getting pretty old. Also, question on it says it's vesting tentative map. Doesn't mean it's vested. It just means we're in the process of vesting.
That's correct.
Okay.
And actually, although it's rarely done and to the ire of developers, you're not obligated to approve it as a vesting map, even though it's written on there. That's as much as I'll say right now, so you can take a peek at that. But if someone's been in a process for quite a few years and they believe they've got a complete date with the rule set locked in because they wrote the word vested on there, they're likely to advocate for that very strongly.
Is that Commissioner Pierce or you? Is that all?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. On this project, it's been around for a long time, and it's had several changes. And I definitely agree with Commissioner Pierce that traffic has got to be updated. The Santana Ranch now is a finished project, and when the EIR came before us, it wasn't built yet. So traffic has got to be updated. Okay, Mark, did you have anything?
No.
No, okay.
Well, thank you very much. May I paraphrase what I think I captured, Commissioner Pierce? I too know that traffic reports have a lot of graphics and images or numerical things, but it sounds like somehow a graphical depiction or somehow translating the traffic report more into layperson's terms, maybe circles, arrows, graphics, or something animated or something, so that you can really get a feel for the traffic generation from this project.
Yeah, and expand the scope.
Expand the scope.
Yeah, so we can push it out a little further and see how it's going to affect, the rest of the traffic corridors.
Well, to Chairwoman Pat Lowe's comment about Santana Ranch hadn't even been built yet, a good EIR, if Santana Ranch had been foreseen, would have been part of the background conditions or foreseeable conditions with, hypotheses and estimates for what that traffic flow was going to be, and also those results. So it may be, even though prior to construction, that Santana Ranch had been considered. I'll need to get on, Ross Perot, I'll need to get under the hood and look at it and see what's there. But I hear your concerns, and I'll share that back with the project planner and the applicant.
Thank you. Okay, does anyone in the audience want to participate in the public hearing at this time? All right, then, I will entertain a motion to continue. You want to continue this to the February meeting?
I'd give pause to that. Just, I think one of the directions was make sure that we we have an effective public notice, and we're still in plenty of time if things are ready to go to bring it back on the 21st, but yet we're going to have to look at the traffic issues. So you may be the applicant's more comfortable with that, but what is this, the third, fourth time that the applicant has chosen to pull that back?
Okay, it's up to the commission. Do you want to continue it or for another month, or should we?
Undetermined.
Undetermined.
Well,
because it might take another month, or it might take 2 or 3 or 4. Because this project
no harm, no foul. No harm, no foul if you do it for the 21st. It just makes the difference of whether we spend more money for the newspaper notice or I hope to heck that we wouldn't be so close that we mailed all the neighbors and told them about the meeting and then it was canceled again for the 21st. That's not a good use of resources. To your discretion.
What if we set it for March? The March meeting?
It's fine with me.
Does that sound reasonable?
Yeah, well, I mean, maybe if they're ready on the 21st, we can go. If otherwise, I think it's right. Don't even re-agendize it. Just go to the 21st or the March meeting, whatever it is.
Well, I would hate to think that somebody really wanted to come and discuss this when we're ready to go with it, and just putting it off for 1 month.
Yeah.
It might be nice and clean, unambiguous if you just moved it to a date specific in March.
Okay. And do we know when the March, we don't have the calendar set yet, but it's, what is the 3rd?
Hey Siri, what's the third Wednesday in March?
Yeah,
In March the 3rd?
The 21st.
the 21st, thank you. Okay, then do I have a motion to continue this to March 21st?
Move we move this to the regular meeting in March on the 21st at 6 p.m.
Do I have a second?
Second.
So ordered. Oh, I'll call for the vote, I'm sorry. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So ordered. Okay, let's move on then to the discussion item. Now, and this is basically a discussion on roadway circulation, secondary access, and new subdivisions as described in San Benito County General Plan and County Code. Before we start on this, I really want to make sure everybody understands we are not talking about a project. We are only talking about general concept and how the commission wants to move forward with these items to give staff direction. And we'd like input from various departments tonight. But please do not get up and talk about a specific project, because that's not what we're here for.
Thank you very much. Very much, thank you. So the presentation this evening, county staff will make a broad introduction of some of the poignant general plan policies and county code requirements. It's not necessary that I really have the report up on the screen. I was going to use one item, so I might just drop it right now for the moment. That's fine. So staff will make a broad introduction of some of the circulation element, general plan policies, and then also the county code requirements when one is proposing a new subdivision design in relation to roadway standards. Then after that broad introduction, we'll ask the Planning Commission for their dialogue, constructive comments or concerns, and we also have representatives from County Fire, County Sheriff's Department, and also our City Engineering Department, since it's about roadway design and those things. So prime for discussion this evening, I believe, are issues of safety, general circulation, future plan lines, and that's when you hypothesize the need for a road to make some connections in the community in the future. That's what a plan line is. And also a brief discussion of the discretion of the county engineer, where standards can be changed or how much authority they can exert with a design standard or flexibility. That might be part of the discussion you have this evening. And also how best to guide RMA staff with adopted policies, but also honoring some of the history and the conversations for folks that have been in process for years. So that'd be good. It's say planning is an art, not a science, and we're going to have to learn how all these pieces work together a little bit. So diving right in, the staff report does present in the discussion that the circulation element has 6 goals, 6 main goals for circulation in the county, and some address, airport transportation or the movement of goods and everything. But I highlighted the top 2 goals, goal C1 and C2 as being the most relevant to residential and subdivision design. And if I could just speak to those, I'll just say them directly here. Goal C1 of the county general plan and the circulation element is to provide an adequate road system that is safe, efficient, reliable, and within the county's ability to finance and maintain. And the second one may not sound as relevant, but it will be as we speak this evening. Goal C2 is to provide a safe, continuous, and accessible system of facilities for bicycle and pedestrian travel in appropriate areas of the county. And as we'll see, that's not just the lone bike lane on the big highway to get from here and there. It's more integrated in the community. So a subsection of goal C1, and this is where I wanted my graphic. Oh, how do I do that? close myself right out of efficiency here. There we go, PDF. Okay. So there's these two main ones. Policy C1.10, a street network plan, actually makes it incumbent. The county shall require project applicants to prepare a street network plan for any subdivision proposal located near existing, approved, or proposed development, whether that be in the county or the city. And that plan shall illustrate how adjoining properties will interconnect over the long term and how the plan will improve pedestrian and bicycle connectivity. The plan shall include an interim access plan and a long-term plan that consolidates vehicle access onto arterials, collectors via a street network design. And the other policy that I pulled out of the 21 that are within Goal C1, so we can talk about other goals and policies that are there, but I've selected these just to get our discussion going. Policy C1.11 is to discourage cul-de-sacs, and we shall encourage developers to minimize the use of cul-de-sac streets in new development. Cul-de-sac streets shall not exceed 800 feet in length, and no portion of the cul-de-sac street shall be more than 400 feet from an intersecting street or public access way, unless physical constraint make it unfeasible. So I kind of one might get lost in numbers. Is it 800? Is it 400? And maybe we can soundboard off the city engineer a little bit to see if there's what that looks like. I brought out the grease board this evening if anybody needed to draw an example or have a what about this or point to things, so we can use that as a tool. But I do want to just preface the cul-de-sacs is also addressed in the next section, the county code. It kind of dials it in a little tighter, so there's a couple layers and levels on that. But these two policies are critical at this time because there's really a growing awareness that connectivity and through streets is not necessarily just rosy community building type of feature, but actually, or hey, wouldn't it be great if I could drive through there, but actually really related to public safety. And some of the recent examples of the California fires, the Northern California fires, where lots of people had to move all at once and very quickly. And so your subdivision design and your connectivity and how you can move about the land it's an important issue. But this is not all on the development community moving forward. There's actually a real county part here. So I'm going to look at this paragraph here, where the county must too do its part in anticipating the location of future roads and where new neighborhoods are going to be, and think forward on connectivity. And sometimes that can be very political, or as one would look down here at the bottom, a NIMBY syndrome. Someone might say, the city's considering or the county's considering putting a road right through here that's going to change life as I know it. I don't want that, all those people, all those cars. But yet on the other side, someone may say, I've been looking for more exposure, more, it's going to increase the value on my property when I eventually sell it. And for me, I appreciate the safety of XY. So there's going to be many facets to any one situation when one's considering putting new lines on the map. So such discussions can be impassioned, if you would. This graphic I'm going to come to in just a few minutes. After I present, I'm going to go through a PowerPoint where I have some images, and that will come up there. So that was two from the general plan. But our implementation ordinance that implements some of the vision of the general plan is the subdivision ordinance or zoning code, a county code. There's all those things in Title 1 through, it's a big title, 25 different titles on how to do stuff. And inside the subdivision roadway design standards chapter, there are sections regarding street types, traffic studies, and design standards. And I want to go to the design standards for a moment because this is kind of material to questions of the day, pending applications, as well as things we haven't even seen yet. How are we to hold the torch to the code? but it's regarding the horizontal layout of streets. And I'm generally not one that reads PowerPoint or things from the screen, but I think it's material here. But it says, in our guidance from our code, streets located on opposite sides of an intersecting street shall have their center lines directly opposite each other. Otherwise, the center lines shall be separated by not less than 150 feet for local roads, and if it's a bigger or faster road, 300 feet for collectors. So there's a preference for them to be connected at 90-degree angles, but it says if not, there's some distances that are preferred by our code. And number 2 here talks about continuation of existing streets. New subdivision streets that are continuations of existing streets shall be aligned so that their center lines coincide. In cases where straight continuations are not physically possible, center lines shall be continued by curbs. So, in translation, you'll see that some of the developments are built in the community. The end of the road is a cul-de-sac, that's just fine, but some others just stub out straight to the edge of the property. And that's where planners and the community have anticipated that road going through to other places. And in fact, there's other parts of the subdivision design here that shows the next person, hey, where you see that road coming up, that's where you need to make your connection. So there's guidance in our codes regarding street connectivity in that manner. And here's a little more detail that I was going to get into on cul-de-sac streets. So I'm going to go to the bottom here where there's a footnote. A cul-de-sac street, a definition, a road open to motor vehicle use at one end only, with special provisions for turning around, and the further extension of which is precluded by land division design. So there's a little too much in that definition there, but basically, road open to motor vehicle use at one end only with provisions for turning around at the end. That's that. And if we go up front, or up top a little bit, the design direction from the county code says there's a maximum length of these streets shall not exceed lengths specified herein. And that was actually referenced back to the general plan, I believe, 800. Herein would literally be the zoning code, but I didn't find a numerical length. But there's a numerical quantifier here. In no case shall more than 50 dwelling units be served by a cul-de-sac street. So whether that's 25 on one side and 25 on the left, or it's 14 and it snakes around and it has a different shape, if you're serving more than 50, our county subdivision ordinance says put a second road in. It doesn't say EVA, it says a second access that's fully accessible. And then sometimes we're presented with alternate turnarounds. Instead of a big cul-de-sac, can I put a hammerhead in, a loop, or an offset bulb, or other geometric design? And basically our code says that should only be used in special circumstances and with the approval of the county engineer. So I did include this policy, but it's not one I'm really going to speak to today. And so just to continue for a moment here, there's several sections here on streets. Streets shall intersect at 90 degrees or as near thereto as permitted by the terrain. And here's an interesting word. Two side streets intersect an arterial or a collector street. They shall enter directly opposite one another, and there should be approximately 1,320 feet between those streets entering the arterial from the same side. And a policy here is don't connect to the arterials too often. Try to keep them open due to traffic volume and normal vehicle speed. And also acknowledges here that you might need turn lanes and decel lanes, etc. And just lastly here, I'm sorry with all the reading things directly, but we'll be a little more free form in a moment. And we also have county code direction here regarding block design for subdivision. Cross streets, dividing residential areas into blocks shall be of intervals, taking into consideration terrain and the intensity of development, Adequate circulation shall be provided within by cross streets, and it has an optimum block length, 660 to 1,320 feet. And it also speaks in B to walkways through long blocks may be required, their location and number being determined by block length, convenient pedestrian traffic routes to school, commercial. And then it even gives credence to the walkway. Don't make them less than 10 feet wide. Make them passable in all weather, and you might even need to light them. So these are the type of things that persons, when they want to develop land, look at the county codes and say, well, I've got a vision for how I want to develop the property, but also the city, the county has their vision and their guidance from the general plan and the codes, and it'd be, how can I get those designs in so I don't need to ask for exceptions, et cetera, et cetera. But as we all know, the general plan's a very large document. Subdivision improvement documents are very large, and there's a lot of pages to go through. And how, do you have to be consistent with all 500 things we can point at? Are things missed over time, or do some things rise to the level of just being ancillary and accessory and not all that important, and some things really rise to public safety? So roadway design and some of the precursors in the discussion, I think, are pretty important. So with that introduction, I'm going to switch to a couple of PowerPoint slides, and then at the commission's discretion, either ask questions or we'll have our public safety officials speak to the matter.
Gavin, one would be, should we not be looking at some of the city codes and city conformity too if we have specific plans that are adjacent to city limit line? And so now even more restrictive, we go to maybe some of the city's elements.
Actually, our county code defers to, says when you're that close to the city, use the city code.
Yeah, we have to kind of join together.
I think the irony, though, is if you had a truly, let's call it a rural subdivision, where you don't have a common water system, you don't have a common sewer system, you're in the country, and you see the county zoning, the small lots are 5-acre minimums, right? But some of our zoning is, 40 and larger. That, oh my gosh, I got distracted from your question.
It was just being, city code and it applying to anything that's close to.
Thank you for bringing me back.
Continue on with the thought line.
Thank you for bringing me back. So I think there might be some places in the code or a deference to just take that city standard and all of a sudden apply it out there in the country. It's just like, have you seen a community that's ever had roads that are just too wide? You go, people are moving through here at 100 miles an hour, and that's a lot of wasted real estate that could have been used for grazing, landscape, or something. So I would think in the country, you might be able to actually have a narrower road standard than others. You get 2 vehicles to pass, and it works for the 25 people that are going to go down that road. And I think that's often done with driveways or access to other property, but sometimes it really stands out as a sore thumb if someone's overbuilt the infrastructure for something that really does not have an urban context.
Yeah, and they've done that in the past out Santa Ana Road. So isn't there something within the general plan also that says if we're going to do projects this close to the city that annexation should be imminent?
Well,
actually, I don't think it actually has a date on it, but
it's actually the policy I kind of crossed over, but it's right there, policy regarding subdivisions. It is the policy of the Board of Supervisors to discourage urban density subdivisions in unincorporated county areas and encourage annexation of the developments to incorporated cities.
So then how do we
and then
do
basically
that?
Says when it's permitted with an annexation, make sure you have all the urban services such as sewer, water, street lighting, and other services.
Right. So we have all that. So then can we end up saying, okay, well, but the project sort of needs to go to annexation within 5 years, or I mean,
so-
yeah, we can encourage annexation and say, gee, you really should. It sort of makes sense, but does the city want it, and
Yeah.
all of that?
So there's the rub, is you do have, the city of San Juan Bautista, city of Hollister, county of San Benito, all incorporated sovereign forms of government. And county can't dictate how the city of San Juan Bautista operates or its land use pattern. It's a cooperative conversation. It's a cooperative conversation, and it's interesting where, who has the utilities,
Yeah.
right?
who has the
Right, because
services?
any development, whether it's a single property in the country or in the city or a large development, there's three basic legs to the stool that someone should have before, investing their life pension, right? Do I have potable water? Do I have a way to take care of sewage, which might be septic in some systems, it might be, a community sewer in one, and other, do I have rights and privileges and access in the right way? So those are pretty much a good foundation that that many people should consider before buying or improving property, that they have those locked up. And the irony here, not the irony, but what do you do when, the city's over there and then the development impact is not right on the border, but just over there a little bit. And so, yeah, that's a broad discussion right there, Commissioner Pierce.
We are encouraging it at the county level because we did start the trifecta. We started the San Juan, City of Hollister, and the county, and it actually even said, Tres Pinos, if you want to join into the conversation. And we try every quarter to get together as a group and talk about growth issues overall to try to keep the channels open. So
Yeah.
I was kind of hoping we could do more, but
If you want to set future conversations for workshops, that's great. It's complex with a lot of passions. Ownership, jurisdictional turf battles, et cetera. But tonight is more about, having some standards in the general plan and policies with give us direction, as well as implementation ordinances. We have some history of development that hasn't met all of those, but have been approved. And with the attrition of staff and, new staff coming on, I'm kind of here to soundboard on how strongly I wave the flag with what's written, with also balancing.
If you want to work public safety in there, it needs to be approved.
Oh, thank you very much. I was just learned that our guests aren't here for the whole evening. Thank you. Thank you. So let me go through this quickly here. There's a bigger screen. So I wanted to just show some subdivision designs that were not from the county of Hollister, county of San Benito, so that we couldn't pick on anybody or anything, because we're not meaning to. But this is in Marina, California, a place I worked recently, and I'll have some other images that follow. But this is a commercial corridor, Reservation Road. The ocean is way off here to the left. We've got open space and airport here to the right. This commercial corridor, and there's RV parks and mobile home parks, but all these cul-de-sacs, can you see them? There's one here, one here, one here, one here, one here. There's others over here. Oh, this is not coming through. Can you guys see that at all? It's more of a plat, but like here's the end of this cul-de-sac that moves this way. Here's the end of this one. And so there's really no connectivity. So if I was right here, end of the block, and I wanted to get to the commercial areas right over here by foot or bike, I've got to go all the way over here and come back here. And so our general plan basically has images and dialogue that to improve street connectivity, thoroughfares, And so pathways connect end of cul-de-sacs to adjacent roadways to promote better bicycle and pedestrian connectivity. So this is not just in a planning book or an ideal book. It's in our general plan. It's guidance for us. But as you see, these little dotted lines at the end of cul-de-sacs, so pedestrians and bicyclists can get to the other streets. And also it's got a consideration for connecting to other properties. And here's an example of future development, and that this road might be stubbed to it in expectation that that will serve this area. So it speaks about traditional grid networks and preserving potential for future road connections. So this would be an example, had they done it differently, where they could have at least had bike paths or walkways between the blocks, and provided, or even full roads, a grid pattern. And so think about it, if you're on Reservation Road driving, in the former situation, you've got to come down this road to get into all this. If you had options like this, it's a little more diffuse, and your traffic's a little more spread out versus concentrated through all those trunks. And I just laid that over the aerial. So trying to move quickly so we can get to our public safety officials. I just drew that on there. And I had to look up on the internet bad subdivision design and good subdivision design, and I was also looking for ugly, good, bad, the ugly, but I couldn't find the other one. But this shows that streets do not intersect. Unnecessary streets and alleys create traffic hazards here, so there's alleys and streets, and you'll see how this is offset. So that's an example of kind of what not to do. And you get these different pie-shaped pieces. And this is an example over here of something that's improved. And just think about all the real estate that's been saved that's not pavement, that's translated into housing or land use areas. So this is an example of 54 lots. It kind of looks like a snail or something here, but these 54 lots, our zoning, our general plan, and our code would have required a second exit on this one, right? Because it serves more than 50, and there's only one way in and one way out. You can almost kind of hear someone saying, "Well, I couldn't put another road in because there's a river there and a floodplain." Well, need to find the design that meets the standard of public safety. And this one I just wanted to show. Sometimes they come in very nice, neat, pretty packages. Look at all the green space. You can even see a pathway or a walkway here. But even this nice design with the community clubhouse and everything is 132 houses behind one entrance in a forested area. So it looks pretty, but I'm wondering, it wouldn't meet our design standards. And this might be something that Chief Bedolla would want to speak to or not when he sees something like that. And so just real quickly, I've only got 2 more slides. This was an example. Granted, it's a very urban design. There's over 1,100 units right there. Granted, it's very urban, but when we've got sewer and water and we have lots at 5,000 to 8,000 square feet, those are urban subdivisions we're reviewing, not the county 5 and 10 acre, 40 acre lots. But this one right here considers future residential areas. And by these openings and connections, it's got a major connection in the cross street that lines up with what's happening across the street, and also provides other ingress and egress in other locations. So very much not this kind of design. Although I gotta say this right here might be just a path or an emergency access. I don't know. So I'll get through this, and that's my last slide right there. Just that these things we need to consider. And so through the chair, would you have a question, or would you like to offer the opportunity for our safety officials to
Why don't we let
speak
the
broadly?
safety officials speak, and then we'll have questions.
Thank you, Chair.
The principal's here.
Hi, Eric Taylor, Captain with the Sheriff's Office. I apologize, I'm the one that's throwing a wrench in the works here because I double booked. I have to get to the high school to announce the game tonight, basketball, so I'm sorry. I was supposed to be there 10 minutes ago. We work real well with Chief Martin Del Campo and with Chief Bedolla, and I think my comments with the Sheriff's Office are really going to be in line with them. A lot of on the forefront of these type of issues of ingress and egress and safety issues by access really fires on the forefront of that, and we kind of fall in with them as far as what we'd be looking for. But if you have any direct questions for the Sheriff's Office that you want me to address as far as traffic, which we are not experts in at the Sheriff's Office, but we try, I can try to address some of those before I leave. And I apologize that I'm being rude and walking out of here, but I know that Charlie and the Chief will do great.
Okay. Are there any questions?
I do. It was specifically one because one of the slides up there appeared to have alleyways, pedestrian alleyways. I'm seeing that not from a fire point of view, but I'm thinking that as maybe a law enforcement criminal element point of view, to where they could hide in the areas and things like that. It's probably harder for fire to get in there, but how do you feel about alleyways and pedestrian corridors? And do we need to widen them in order to make them, make it more vigilant for you guys, or what could we do around that element?
Yeah, so I came from a place that had a lot of alleyways. An old design chief worked there for a while. For us, it was difficult, not only for officers and deputies to be able to remember where they are because they're not marked, and you got to try to figure out going off of what street you came off of. And we had alleyways that connected to alleyways that connected to alleyways, so it's really easy to get lost. But it definitely was a place where we saw a lot of people that don't want to be seen by law enforcement and by public safety. That's a place to hide because they're usually dimly lit. They're difficult to get in. We have parking issues that make our access to them very difficult. I think that alleyways and definitely like bike paths and walking paths make places nicer for, like what Tavin was talking about, for people to be able to use alternative forms of transportation. But I would like them to be at a way for, if we had those in the county model, a design where we'd be able to access them in a vehicle. And if they were there, I would not really want them to be open to regular vehicular traffic, but a way for us to be able to get in through those areas. Because what ends up happening, and you can all show me your surprise faces, but when you put no parking signs in an alleyway, people typically don't pay attention to that. And the time when you want to go enforce that is usually during emergency when you need to get through there, so it makes it difficult because they're narrow. And typically when you have other parking issues in the neighborhood, that's a default because a lot of garages and stuff open up to alleyways. So I would be careful about that.
Okay. Thank you for your input.
Mark, do you have any questions?
No, I'm good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Sorry, Tom.
Charlie?
Good luck. Hi, my name is Charlie Bedolla. I'm the battalion chief with Hollister Fire Department, and I am the deputy fire marshal. Chief Bob Martin Del Campo is the overall fire marshal. The city of Hollister oversees code enforcement for the city, fire prevention, and the arson task force for San Benito County. The chief saw there was a need to actually expand. He saw there was a drop in service. The customer wasn't getting taken care of. Who's our customer? The city, the county, San Juan, the contractors, and the community and the citizens. So with that, he ended up creating a position to assist with the fire prevention aspect of it. You know, there was a lot of projects that were going in, and the way the chief was seeing it is we treat everything within the sphere of influence. Everyone gets treated the same. So we're trying to show some consistency with it. The fire code is consistent with the state, and it's usually the international fire code, and we don't want to treat it any different. We don't want to do it because this one saw it this way, this one saw it this way, and this one sees it this way. So what we've done is we've incorporated the one fire code, and we're trying to get them adopted within the whole county, the city of Hollister, and the city of San Juan Bautista. That way we're operating under one. And it's standard. There's a reason why this stuff is implemented, or we have codes, usually because something bad happens. And when we've gotten in on those projects, and roadway widths is something we don't want to compromise. And there's a couple projects that are in there that we're trying to stay away from and keep it. I hate to, and just being in the position, we're seeing, well, we are wasting a lot of money here and time here, so why are we doing that? Like the cul-de-sacs. So we do see the limit of the cul-de-sacs, but something we got together with the water department, and we're like, well, and something Chief Martin Del Campo had brought up is like, let's get rid of hydrants in the cul-de-sacs. Why do we have hydrants at the end of the cul-de-sacs? We have 600 to 1,000 feet of hose where we could lay in. Well, we're thinking about the customer. Do people really have places to park at the end of the cul-de-sac? We'll be able to lay into the fire if we need to. We're not compromising our turnarounds, and it's less maintenance for the company too. So we've kind of like putting them in there, pulling them out and putting them in there. The other thing we were talking about, if you look going up Union Road, and if you see up Union Road past fire station, so we're even Lad Lane, we have a fire station every 200 feet. A fire hydrant every 200 feet. So why do we have a fire hydrant every 200 feet where there's no homes at? That's something that we're kind of trying to look at. I was like, sure, they said every 200 feet you have to have one, but there's nothing in there, and all the residents on the other side of the sound wall. So we're trying to be smart and trying to be customer-oriented and not put unnecessary things on the contractors, the community that we don't need. Does that make sense? The narrow ones we want to get away with. We don't care if we go up, but don't compromise the width of the roadways. And we do. I think we should, for the DRC meetings, Development Review Committee, the city has one, and I think we should get everyone from the city and the county to participate in the city DRC meetings and the county what do we call IDRC or IRC meetings. Only because we could get police input on the alleyways for out in the county. We could get input from them on the city stuff too. So we're constantly learning, but we're trying to be consistent with the community. And we're not separating it, Hollister, San Juan, the county, Tres Pinos. No, we're trying to pull it all in. We have one thing. That way it's just one thing, and we can go look at it. Oh, that was easy. Yeah, we're going to go by this code right here and keep it consistent. Does that make sense?
Sure.
Okay. Any questions?
Charlie, you brought up the roadway width and not compromising on that. Can you basically give us a schedule of what
Okay,
that
so
means?
a fire access road has to be a minimum width of 20 feet. Okay, of all access, all-weather road. All-weather road. All-weather road is paved concrete or steel. But 20 feet, if you have 20 feet, you can barely get a fire engine through there. So if you do a road 20 feet, you have to have it red on both sides of the road. Greater than 20, if you get 26 feet, is a fire truck access road. Okay, anything over 26 feet, you have to have red on one side of the curb. So once you start getting to 20, I believe it's 32 or 36 feet, then you can have parking on both sides of the roadway. We have, and I hate to talk about different developments, but Holland Circle, I don't like Holland Circle, and that's a nightmare to us. We have the higher density homes, but if you look at it, we can't get an engine through there. And it's one way in and one way out. People start parking in there. It's just a hard time to get in there. I believe in the higher density homes, but let's not compromise the width of the street. So we could get in there, get the hydrant, and be able to. And it's not only for fire either. We have a couple other projects where we had to go in and paint red because the fire lane signs just don't cut it. Because people say, oh, I didn't see it, and they're parking right there. I had a new development where we had the higher density homes coming in, and I couldn't even get my car through there because they were parked on both sides. It was only 20 feet wide. They're like, we have the signs. Nope, you got to paint it red, and we got to enforce this. Well, if there's a fire, you can pull hose. It's not only a fire. What if we have a medical emergency, someone's not breathing, we got to get as close as we can to those people to start providing BLS. It's not only fires, but it's the EMS calls too. Roadways. We don't ever allow traffic calming devices because we don't want to compromise the safety of the public. We do want it opened up. We do want access. We do want secondary access to it. EVAs, as far as I'm concerned, are a waste. They're a waste. Let's just open up the roadway. We have an EVA that I look at every day driving by. If we look at Black Forest, so you see how they have that one EVA off of Sunny Slope? It's a waste. It's going to be there. We're never ever going to use it. We have to have a key to go unlock it, and we don't even know if it's going to unlock. And we have to tend to that lock all the time. So I get it. The intent was well, but we're better off just opening it up. A liability issue. You know, I hate to say it, and I'll bring it up. We don't want another ghost ship. And it doesn't matter. Everyone knows what ghost ship was, the Oakland fire. Because now the fire department, code enforcement, and individuals are being held liable just because they weren't enforcing or doing the minimum standards that they needed to do. And they were allowing stuff that shouldn't have been allowed. So we don't ever want to put ourselves in that position if we know about something like that, or if we're compromising public safety. We don't want it to come back at us. Plus, we don't want anyone to get hurt.
Address the cul-de-sac and the need for not to having a cul-de-sac and a lot of cul-de-sacs in developments.
Yeah, and I think that's a good plan on the cul-de-sacs, is cutting them out and either getting the ways out so we can get in and out. You know, once, like I said, Napa was the perfect, Santa Rosa was the perfect example of, and we don't know exactly how the roads were, but a lot of people didn't have a way out of getting out, and we don't want to compromise that with long cul-de-sacs. We don't want to be laying hose down long cul-de-sacs. We don't want people to trap in for long cul-de-sacs. That's for police and fire. If there's an incident going down there, especially with a wind-driven fire, we'll trap them in there right there. They're not going to be able to get out. They're going to get bottlenecked in there. People won't be able to get out, and we won't be able to get in. We won't be able to get in, so.
Thank you.
If you had a bullet list of the most important, what would your top 5 be on what you need? You've already mentioned emergency access and wide roads. Do you have any others?
You know, traffic calming is a big one, and we're tired of going out to vehicle accidents. What can we do to do it? You know, I try to put in, but you know what, if we're not going to put up a light, let's put up a roundabout. Let's put up something so we can provide some safety. Fairview, at least one of them, let's get somebody to put some roundabouts up there so we can at least slow it down in these new developments. That's a big one for us, traffic calming. We don't do traffic calming, but we will do roundabouts.
Right.
We'll do roundabouts because we don't want to block the traffic where it limits our access to get through to you. But traffic calming, that'll help slow people down. They say, well, people speed up in between stop signs. I get it. Well, you know what? Let's put in a roundabout and get that to work.
Okay, you're talking about, because this is planning, so you're talking about traffic calming just as signaled intersection, or are you talking about bulb outs, physical speed bumps, things like that?
Speed bumps, speed humps. So what's been proposed to us in the past is even raised medians. I mean, anything like that would impair our path of travel, even by a second, as a detriment to our main mission. And you got to keep in mind that our 2 main objectives for our mission statement is the fact that, seconds count. The brain dies without oxygen in 6 minutes, and fire doubles in size every 2 minutes. So for us to hear the bell go off and to get to our assigned destination, we need those seconds to get there. So when it was proposed to us to put raised mediums or ballards that come out of the ground or even have a gated community that wasn't gated before is an extreme detriment to our mission and to accomplish our goal, which is to save the lives of the community. We frown upon it, and it's not within our fire code. The fire code adamantly disapproves of it, so we're not going to even entertain it, and we're adamant about it because we're providing a certain level of safety to the community. So what Eric Taylor was talking about, Captain Taylor was talking about earlier, in Watsonville, where he and I both worked at one time, there were thoroughfares going from one end of the city to the other end of the city with schools in between that were really wide streets and served as, your Daytona 500. Well, when you put a roundabout in an intersection where there's a school at, now this is all predictive because we know when the accidents happen right around the time you drop your kids off and pick them up in front of a school, so we know where the locations are in front of the school, or intersections where there's heavy commerce traffic. You put the roundabouts there, and then you will see a little bit of hesitation from the community, learning how to understand the roundabout, and in a matter of a couple of weeks, it took even a week or so for myself as a battalion chief out there to understand, now it's my turn to go, now it's my turn to cut out, and it becomes repetition. When public safety sees that, and we come into that intersection, we have the lights and sirens come on. As soon as we get to the intersection, we slow down, people stop for us, and we go through. We don't have to go through the roundabout because it's not raised. It's just rubberized paint on the ground that everybody will abide by. So,
Yeah, or concrete, whichever one.
or concrete. So, in my opinion, I think that's probably the best velocity calming measure that's out there without putting a lot of money into a street sign, without putting a lot of money into a lighting system or ballards in the ground. All of them are great ideas when they're needed and necessary for that level of security, but not for us to get from one point to another to accomplish our mission.
Last question for you. So, how large does a subdivision have to be or an area have to be in rooftops before you guys would consider a station, a new station? And then also, do you have a plan that says, okay, these are elements, these are places in town that we'd like to see stations? Because if they are in the county, we can put them down as a plan line and go, okay, we're going to have a station out there somewhere, and we can plan for it.
Absolutely.
And I think that brings up a good point that we were just talking about that. Put aside Hollister Fire Department, get rid of anyone, okay?
Dropping all the borders.
Dropping all the borders. We just need a fire station here. So who's going to staff that station? We do need to come up with a plan to decide after so many homes, we need to put a station within that standards of coverage. We do need to start getting something towards the South County from Ridgemark, because Union Station to right there on Best Road is like 4.7 miles. So they're within that, and it helps with their ISO rating for the insurance also. The Rosamorada would be good if we can get that up to help with the North County people within that sphere of influence. The
West.
out there, west, San Juan Oaks in that area, that'll also assist too. So we need to figure something in. Like I said, we're not asking for Hollister Fire Department, we're just asking for the fire department. It doesn't need to be us, because if our contract goes away, we still want to make sure that at least the county as a fire department, the county as fire engines, they'll be able to provide for them. Right now, there's only fire engines that are a couple years old, but they're going to get old, they're going to need to get replaced. So we got to take care of that infrastructure of the public safety. We do need to set something where we say, 50 homes, we put in this much for the pot. I don't know how that works, but we do need to get creative to start saying, okay, let's get some money for the fire station. I believe we had agreed out there at the San Juan Oaks that they'll give us a piece of property. But that doesn't do us any good, because how are we going to build it? They give us a piece of property, but we have no engines and no station to build. So it was just a waste of time for us to do, because where are we going to pull the money? We can't get blood from a rock, you know?
Yeah, if there were developers out there that who would earmark that piece of property for a public safety facility, my goal was to have the developer build a one-engine fire station, and I would co-locate a deputy and an ambulance transport with us, so you have all three disciplines of public safety deploying from that west side station to get to either 101, take care of the adult community, what was it, the retirement community? Now, I'm getting in there too. I got 4 more years before I become what's considered a senior citizen, believe it or not. And that demography is taken into consideration also. So when we place fire stations, we don't place the fire stations where there's an empty piece of property. We place the fire stations where the statistical and analytical surveys tell us this is the area of greatest population, this is where all the call volume is, this is where all the high hazards are, including schools, churches, routes of travel. That's where you put the fire station. So a standard of cover study done on this community would place the fire station with the proper equipment. So if it says just a fire engine, then we just put one fire engine. But if it says a fire engine co-located with a ambulance transport or a truck, because you've got high elevation, and the truck will give you that elevation, it'll configure all that information for you. My intent was, once a development, say, the Del Webb or whatever community goes out there and establishes that property and develops it, if there's going to be a high-rise or mid-rise, I want a truck out there. If there's going to be a great number of homes with a certain demography, my age or older, I want an ambulance out there. Let's meet the need of the people, and those are the studies that we would provide for that.
Okay.
Even the urban interface, a Type 3, a wildland engine, a quick attack for out there too. That would be something that we'll be placing out over there, or out even on South County on the other side on the east entrance of Ridgemark.
So do you have a response time element, a radius or something like that? And that's how you set up your plan line?
Okay, so there's a national survey, and there was just a study that was done through an outside agency, and they have their recommendations. And ideally we want to be there 4 to 6 minutes from time of call turnout time. But in addition to that, you need to be within 5 miles to help your insurance.
Yeah.
So, we can be out there within 6 miles, but your insurance doesn't care. They're going to say, you're 5.1 miles, we don't care, you're protection class 10.
Okay.
So the majority of the community, we're not going to be able to get down in South County, we understand, and we will utilize mutual aid as much as we can that's down there. We have 3 stations in the summer, if they're not gone, 3 or 4 stations that we'll be able to utilize, and we do utilize if they're available. And we know we're going to get as close to Tres Pinos as we can, where the majority of the people are, and then start making our way towards that way, to the west and to the north, to hopefully encompass everybody. Public safety, that's our number one priority. We just care about providing the service, and it doesn't matter who it is, whether it's Hollister, CAL FIRE, or whoever it is, at least having a station there so they can provide the service.
Right.
So then what size do you need for a station? Do you need like an acre, a half an acre, a quarter of an acre?
Ideally, we need like a drive-through station. It could be 1 or 2. We'd recommend at least a 2-bay, double wide and double long.
Yeah.
At least 2 bays and double long, so we can house some equipment there.
And he means a drive-through station where instead of a garage that you'd normally drive up into, it's an apparatus bay where both doors open up front and back, because firefighters have a tendency of not making it all the way in without hitting something. I hate to say it, and these guys are all Class 2 drivers. They can do the best job but you're working 24 hours, something's going to get hurt, so
Well,
let's mitigate it.
we laugh
So
about
maybe
it,
an
but people
acre
get
then,
killed
right?
every day from that,
Yeah.
from people backing over people,
Right.
firefighters. That's why it's...
A good point that Tevin brought up was that these surveys are conducted by insurance companies, and a lot of these companies will do a standards of cover for free, or we can get a consultant to do it for the tri-jurisdiction within our community. And what that does, it gives us an idea of the better coverage of where to place these stations for the fire department, ambulance, and to even co-locate law enforcement. When those studies come up, it's easier for community facilities development to be organized and to get passed. Sales taxes for public safety are taxed easier because it's all part of the public safety plan. And with the strategic plan like that, there's more viable information to utilize and to convince the constituents, hey, look, this is what you have. This is our plan ahead. This is our next fire station. So with this CFD and the funding that we get from it, we're going to put the fire station here at the west side of the community. And with that fire station, you'll get this equipment, this staffing, and a law enforcement officer at every call that comes in from 911. So as far as leveraging funding, absolutely. It does provide us a that much support for that.
And just because we say a fire station, doesn't mean it has to be strictly for a fire station.
no.
We can co-locate and charge the private ambulance company
Yeah.
to provide a service if we build it big enough. An idea that we did, Chief Bob was having a substation for the sheriff's department, so they can have somewhere to go, so they can be on the west side of the county, so they can be on the south side of the county. Because they only have one station, no substation, we need to provide something for them where they could be safe also. So that's an alternative too, and we've always brought that up, hey, if you guys are here, come on down. A lot of them don't like to do it, but if we provide a substation for them, you know, safe where they could do reports and go to the restroom and even stretch out, you know.
So my background is I'm the only firefighter in my family. I've got uncles and grandfathers who are all law enforcement. Right after they got out of the military, they all became cops. I got a son that's a cop here in Hollister, so I've got a deep-rooted investment in taking care of our law enforcement. It's no more the blue and red anymore. There's no dividing line. We're all working together, and I think it's good to co-locate because it's a collaborative effort across the board. So let's embrace it.
And like I said, he brought in our arson task force, which the deputies have sent some personnel. PD has sent some personnel, so, and we're providing the training for them. It was a great idea that was brought up, and we're just bringing it as, we're one county, we need to take care of ourselves, so we're an island.
Yeah.
When stuff goes down, it's just going to be us.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we do need to get creative, and that's not our expertise, and we don't, I know I don't know how to do it, but if we can do that to get creative, to set some standards where we can get the infrastructure and not compromise public safety, we'd love to do that.
Us too.
I have an open door policy. He has an open door policy. If you have building questions or you have anything, I'll give you my cards. It has my cell. Call me. If you have a question about a project, I'm working well with within the county. I'm working with South Santa Clara County, with Monterey County, and the BEU. So if I don't know something, I'm usually making contact with them, bouncing off them. So the decisions that we're making is not our decision. It's like a collaborative effort with the chief and other fire prevention officers in there. So if I don't know the answer, I do what I can to get the answer, to be fair and consistent and not compromise public safety.
Charlie?
Yes.
I talked to you earlier today about the, 50 homes or more, we have the secondary access. At what point have you come up with a number that you would think maybe we need the third or the fourth?
I think the fire code allows us to make that decision wherever we want, but I think we can make something where we say every 50 homes, we just add an additional access.
Yeah,
to
and
it.
then too, it depends on the route of travel and the topography. I mean, if it's a linear 50 homes, you don't really want to put too many accesses in there. Then now you're taking away from the developer to continue to develop and use parcels properly. I went to a development this morning, and I saw one access in from the north and one access in from the south, and in the Pinnacles National Highway to the west of it. Then I saw cul-de-sacs that met up into the property but didn't go through. So it's deceiving because you think that you're going to have several paths of egress and entrance into the development, but you only have two. And once those houses go up, people are like cattle. They know they came in this way. They know that they're going to leave this way, even if the closest entrance is right there. I'm thinking, if there's something happening here, I came in that way, I'm going to leave that way. But the closest exit is right there. And even if we live in that environment, you want to change that culture. So that particular property or the development, I'm kind of disappointed. It's been a while since I've been out there, but I would like to see that particular development have an egress from where I was standing at to where I came in from. Because where I came in from, if I had to leave rapidly, I would probably go over the curb into that cul-de-sac and then get through. Only because I'm in public safety, I know to do that. Not everybody does know to do that. So to the answer to the question, there's really not a set number, we would have to take a look at the plans and say, hey, you know what? This needs another entrance. Even if it's 40 houses, one of those houses could be an obstacle to get out. So I would say, let's put the egress right here. As long as it's justifiable and it's not going to compromise anybody's livelihood or anything that will cause a detriment to the development.
I know we didn't want to bring up any specific developments, but I really like, I really like one that was done with the streets by the river, the California streets and around that area right there, the access in and the future development, how they're able to do half the road and then eventually we'll split it up. But there's plenty of access in there, and then we work together on the limited cul-de-sacs and the hydrant placement. So that was a really good project, I think, that was done really well, that we worked well with Sunny Slope Water on. And I like the amount of access in and out.
Yeah.
And the future of it. Yeah, it looked really good on that project like that. So I mean, kind of set the tone for where we're like, okay, this is where we want to be. This is what's best for the community, for the public safety part.
And then just one final question. Sprinklered homes.
Accessory dwelling units. I did bring some literature. I have like 10 copies of it, what the state says. So accessory dwelling units. So I'm going to recommend them that they get sprinklered every time. And the reason is if there's access, or if you're out in the county, if your home's not sprinklered already, then per the state law, you don't need to sprinkler it, okay? But if your home's sprinklered and you add an accessory dwelling unit up to 1,200 square feet, you do have to sprinkler it if it is sprinklered. If it's not sprinklered, you don't have to sprinkler it. So what I'm doing is I'm making recommendations, and I always will, to sprinkler it. Have we seen them save homes? Absolutely. Have we seen them devastate homes without them? Absolutely. And the reason is the sprinklers do three things actually. They keep the fire in check. They give you time to be able to get out, but it also helps keep the fire in check so we can safely go fight the fire as best as we can. So a lot of the newer construction that's out there, they're usually like stuck in with plates instead of hammers and nails and 16s and everything like that. So the plates get compromised at 800 degrees where it already starts to bow.
I think
so
it's 600.
yeah,
600 degrees.
and the roofs are a lot heavier and everything. So we want to try to buy as much time so people can get out, but we can safely go fight the fire. 5 minutes of an active burning fire, unsprinklered, that's a death. We're just signing our own death warrant.
Yeah, at that point, what the chief is talking about, where you have a roof and where the joists are meeting at the top, at the peak, that's what bears most of the weight of that roof. So instead of like in your Victorian homes where they would nail them together with, 16 penny nails, they get a gusset plate, which is a piece of like sheet metal that has spikes in it, and they just hammer that plate together with all three pieces of wood coming up to it, and it bonds it together. Well, it's good as long as the temperature's right and there's not a lot of weight up there. Once it gets compromised in the attic, heat rises up, and those plates get compromised. It's not one board that's going to fall apart, it's the whole system, the whole truss system that's going to fall apart, and it'll cave in. It may cave in on the residents that own it, but more than likely it'll cave in on the public safety officers that make entry into that building. And those are the concerns that we're worried about. With a sprinkler, an upright sprinkler in the attic would take care of that, would cool it down fast enough for us to get in there, do our rescue, or do our extinguishment, salvage, and overhaul. That's all we want to do. Extinguishment, salvage, and overhaul. But when those sprinklers are not in place, it's a lot more involved.
It's knocked down 3 different fires. Now, Donna's Lane really scared the heck out of me. That fire should have burned that complex and then some. If we would have had any wind, that would have been wind-driven fire. But since that firewall was built well, and the people were able to get out, luckily,
Extinguishment.
And it was a rapid extinguishment. We were close, people were available, and we were able to knock it down. But But then again, we've had 2 other fires. An illegal drug house was one of them.
Yeah.
They were cooking their illegal drugs, popped off, had an explosion, set off 2 heads, put out the fire. The people got evicted, but the only damage was the heads that went off and just a flash, where that would have caused damage to the whole garage and even extended to the house.
And it was just water damage that it was creating. But because it was such a volatile fuel that young man was using to cook the marijuana, the whole garage could have went up because the contents of the garage was clothes, boxes, all kinds of combustible material. But the sprinkler put it out. And by the time we got there, all we were doing was salvaging the material. I don't think any hoses were even deployed.
Actually, the guys kind of get upset. You know, we had one on Sunny Slope where it was in a kitchen, and it was one that I had done just an inspection last year to get it in there, knocked the fire out, they didn't have to pull hose. So, you know, we kind of joke about it. I'm trying to work our guys out of a job,
yeah.
is what my job is to do, to make everyone safe. But you know what? It's safe for them, it's safe for us. And, you know, I had that same fire on Severinsen in a kitchen, and it ended up burning the whole kitchen into the house. It spread out there. This other fire started the same way. As soon as it got up there, knocked it down, minimal damage.
Yeah.
And a little bit of water. So, am I going to make them do it? No, but I highly recommend it. And people, after we talked about it, they're like, okay, I get it. We're buying time for you and us, especially if you live without. So there was an accessory dwelling unit that was in town. He goes,
Sorry, can I interrupt for just a moment over here?
Oh, yeah.
I just want to bring this conversation back. I do apologize. I think that the fire discussion is extremely interesting, but we are here to discuss, the roadways and subdivisions, et cetera. So to the extent that we can narrow the conversation to that, and certainly fires, access due to the street and the developments, that would be appreciated.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Yeah, and that was where I was bringing up. It was at the end of the cul-de-sac with a hydrant. You know, we had the hydrant to lay in, but our access wasn't good for them in the back of the house. So having our access road in there, they were able to sprinkler it, and they said, yeah, we'll do it. So we're not going to make them put it in, but we'll highly recommend it on that. But our access road is important to that, too.
Okay.
And I have some pamphlets I'll give to you, or the actual sheet.
Right, thank you. Okay, then I will, Tavin, did you want to say anything before I open it up to the public?
Yes, just one little thing. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
So thank you. And you had mentioned, or you had a query on when would it be appropriate to require that third point of access in addition to the second, and where we may look at this property and see that numerically, or even to serve those properties, we may need 2. It's that interconnectivity, that future serving might be the needs of other people to move through the property, that the planners would recommend additional access points. So not just from the inside out.
Thank you. John.
Yeah. So just real quick, I'm John Gurdon with the Resource Management Agency. So that's tough to follow. I wish we all had that kind of passion for our work. And I would love to sit and listen to what you guys do every day. That's really interesting stuff, and we really appreciate it. So unfortunately, we have to bring this back to just boring planning and how we got here. As Tavin mentioned earlier, and I apologize for my voice, but I'm just getting over a cold, but planning is really more of an art form. And so what I've tasked Tavin and the other planners in the planning department to do is to really start to take more of a holistic approach to how we approach planning in this county. As Commissioner Pierce brought up, we need to take into account how we interconnect with this city and how our developments that are just right on the outskirts of the city, which really should be part of the city but aren't for whatever reason, how they interconnect, how the interplay works, how traffic flows. There's a lot of stuff that the planners need to talk about and think about as we're planning these communities and working with the developers. It's more than just traffic and how traffic flows. It's more than just bike flows, pedestrian flows. There's park issues. Do we provide enough recreational areas and open space areas for the community? And how do those interplay as you do a development and then 5, maybe 10 years, there's another development? How do you plan that? And how do you contemplate where your community is going to go in the future? in the 80s, we started with this, idea of gated communities. And that's continued up until this point. And so now we've created all of these pockets of gated communities, which creates flow issues, creates public safety issues, for fire to get in and out, their ingress, egress, for the community to be evacuating if they need to at the same time. It creates law enforcement issues for the sheriff on being able to get in. And as you pointed out, you have those narrow alleyways, narrow pedestrian ways where they don't see what's going on. So those are all the things that we need to be thinking about a little more proactively. And then balancing that with development and working with the developers and encouraging development in the community and not discouraging development. So we need to weigh the needs of the developers and making their projects viable so that we're not being overly burdensome. And we need to find that balance. So that's kind of how we got here today, is this is just one of those various aspects that the planners are starting to look at a little more proactively and looking for direction and input from the commissioners on how we move forward with that. So there'll be other policy discussions that we'll be having as we go forward on things like parks and open space and traffic calming, things like that. So that's how we got here today, just so as members of the community come up now and speak, they know why we're here and what we're talking about.
Thank you.
So Pat, one thing before we move forward. LOS, level of service is D, right? I mean, according to our general plan, our level, and D, isn't that much like a parking lot?
State direction has changed.
Yeah. D is a lot of sitting and idling.
So part of this discussion might be changing our level of service to something a little better than a parking lot on our intersections?
That would be the plan, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just wanted to make sure it was included in the talk.
Something to add to
If
that?
I could, though, there's been a sea change in traffic modeling and traffic thinking, and LOS is a dinosaur now.
So just for everybody, in case you don't know, let's level of service.
Level of service. So an A, level of service, you stopped, you went right through the intersection, no traffic. A level of service D or E, you're waiting 3 cycles to get through the intersection. Level F is the 405 freeway on the day before Thanksgiving, of which I was in last week, or whatever. But they're going to be transitioning traffic modeling from levels of service to, trip reduction, demand management, and multimodal. Oh, I'm spacing on my term at the moment, but it's the integration of different methodologies to reduce the amount of trips, not necessarily that one intersection. But LOS will still be with us for a while. It's in all our documents. But some of the new modeling and traffic reports that'll come to bear, you'll start to hear some new terminology.
Okay. Thank you.
Did the gentleman from Public Works want to say anything before I open it up to the public?
No, I think enough is.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, I will open this up to the public. Would anybody in the audience like to share comments or thoughts? Steve?
Good evening, Steve Rosati, Hollister resident. Back on a level of service, I think the county used to have a level of service C, but I think somebody along the way decided D was better. So I just thought I'd throw that out there in case we don't remember that. Anyway, from a traffic standpoint, it's one thing to have a singular concentrated use for a particular project or area around a project. Either just commercial or just residential is a lot easier to mitigate. But when there's multiple uses, either within a project or near a project, that kind of puts a different level of traffic stress within the project as well as in the surrounding area of a project. For example, a residential and commercial area near each other or a recreational mix makes it harder to mitigate traffic. Planning Commission and General Plan could address areas that have multiple uses nearby with a little different level of concern and mitigation requirements as compared to the singular uses. Sometimes more left or right-hand turn lane pockets are needed in addition to more lanes. In other cases, you might need secondary access roads, ingress and egress. Hopefully, the Planning Commission can not only mitigate traffic needs within a project, but when you're dealing with traffic stresses and the need to mitigate improvements for the surrounding area that already exists, that needs to be expanded upon as well, so don't forget that. And this is kind of apples to oranges, I suppose, but just kind of think about, not a particular project, it's already there, San Benito Street. San Benito Street serves through traffic, residential traffic, school traffic, students and residential foot traffic. And just say that, just throwing it out here, if Monterey Street or East Street wasn't developed, and all of a sudden you're faced with all these proposals for different things to come in, this is when creative mitigation needs to come into play, because you probably have to start popping, accessory roads through different places and whatnot to accommodate all those different mixes. So I'm not saying you're going to see every development in the community with that many mixes, but you have to, again, consider the existing mixes that are nearby that are going to be impacted by either expansions or different type of development. That's it. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else like to address the Planning Commission? Okay, I will close and bring it back to the Planning Commission. Any comments? I guess I'll ask staff first if there's anything specific you would like from the Commission this evening. This is more food for thought. Do you understand my question?
I do, and I hadn't couched the staff report with options or really trying to direct or steer, but we will have development that comes in the future. And if I could just give a little illustration, in our general plan circulation element, it categorizes the types of roads, arterial versus collector, but the graphic image doesn't go much beyond a circle around the city of Hollister. So we really don't have any long plan lines or projection for, well, right now it's open country, right? South, once you get a little bit out there, but we've, development's kind of spilling that way, and some of the development proposals that are coming our way are kind of outside the general plan area right there. The images of where the general plan anticipated arterials, or, it even has a South Side Road as an arterial, and so many discussions I've seen, and actually you driving the road, you go, is this really ever going to be 110 feet wide? When you've got a cliff on one side, the road and it's crumbling, and then there's a bench on the other side. So some of these things in the circulation element will really need to be thought through and addressed. Existing roads may be reclassified, maybe a new road alignment proposed somewhere, or something that was thought to be more of a minor road says, well, this one needs to carry more traffic, and we're going to move it this way. So some of that thinking will need to come. I know the county just went through a general plan process. It only happened, 2-3 years ago. But it would be ideal in any community to forward think before the development proposals come in on how we would, almost like judo, you've got a development pressure coming, hey, let's give it the best shape we can in the vision of what's been thought about and fleshed out through public processes by the Planning Commission and the board. And some of our images in our general plan that did that are a little small for the development picture that's happening right now. So just anything that you would want to add, or conversations you would assure that the planners have with new developers as they come in. Anything like that would be fine, but I'm not really trying to find a black and white answer tonight. I think it was highly illuminating to hear from our public safety officials and, to mirror John Gerton, the passion with which they serve the community and public safety. And so I'll stop with my editorial and leave it back to you.
Okay, thank you. Ray, did you have?
Mine only would be to thank staff, all of you, for your time, your effort. It's always appreciated. Safety personnel, thank you for your service. Used to be there once a long time ago, and I appreciate you sticking it on the line for us. So, and thank the public for all showing up tonight. We have a nice turnout, and we appreciate your input.
Okay. Thank you. Mark?
Yeah. Can you give us a little overview on how this works logistically? So somebody wants to do a subdivision. So they're given the roadway design standards, right? And then they build it to what they feel satisfies this, okay? Now it gets to you. Who analyzes that plan? Does your staff, or does Public Works, or both?
Well, ideally, you would have had several meetings or interactions with your planning staff and maybe to a level where you've interacted with some other departments prior to a formal submittal. But even in the pre-planning process, or even once someone has made a formal submittal, the plan comes in and it's routed to the different agencies: Public Works, Fire, Environmental Health, Water Departments, Planning Department. And each of us takes our own rule set out that we have, general plan in one, or health and safety code in another, or universal fire code, and helps remind the applicant or the developer that they needed to get a standard into their design. So hopefully by the time they want to submit and they've said, Dear County, we're ready for you to process this now, that they've got a really good idea for all the rules and regulations, or some of even the more subjective things, like the general plan, has these goals and policies that aren't necessarily nuts and bolts. You build it 100 feet here or make 2 of those. It says we'd like safe communities that are interactive with the downtown Hollister and let bicycle, and so someone could say, that's where the art comes in. Someone says, I've got my design and look, I've enhanced it with parks and a connectivity, and you guys wanted parks and connectivity. So we can, in the planning conversation, we try to share those ideals that are in the general plan. We try to share the things that are in the zoning code, but ultimately it is on the applicants to get it in the design, because once we come before you, the planners need to say, hey, we've reviewed it against all this, and they're consistent with code, and we believe they consistent with the goals and ideals, and if they do X, Y, and Z, they can satisfy the fire department and public works department too. So it's I'm going to answer it just a different way and quickly. I won't speak all night. But when agencies get super busy and their staff, where they have attrition issues or developments just going nuts, there's a tendency sometimes to just process applications. It came in, let's process, let's move it through, let's get everybody to talk about it, and all of a sudden it comes to, let's schedule it for a public hearing, and no one's done any evaluation yet. And you just process it, and all of a sudden, you've got continuances, or you've got the late discovery at a late hour, and that's terrible for applicants. It's terrible for planners. Okay, because ideally, what you need to do is up front is you do the planning, not the processing, but let's do the planning. Hey, and I gave the example today of one of my staff members. Someone came in and they didn't meet a setback, and the planner said, "Oh, you just need a variance." And someone processed the variance, $1,000, and all of a sudden it gets right here, and you can't make that was the wrong conversation. The planning that should have happened was, for what you want to do, if you moved it 3 feet over, you wouldn't need a variance, and you can get the 1,500-foot sunroom that you and your wife want. Do it like this. And so you mold the clay up front, And if you do that upfront work, the processing's a breeze. And so that's the art, and that's what we do. Is the more we can plan where roads are going to go, or plan for public safety. I think one of the greatest things that is a detractor to most development is when a municipality or government or something says, we don't know what to do, and we're going to fumble with it. And so time is money. An example is years ago in the cellular industry, when people were wanting to do the fake cactuses or the monopine trees, or it's got to fit with the city. You know what? The cellular companies really didn't care if they had to make it an expensive monopine tree instead of a tower that they wanted, if they knew that they could design it like that and get a permit and get out, because the community had made up their mind. But it was, we're still figuring out whether we want them to look like redwoods, or we want them to look like pines, or does it need to look like something from the farm, like a water tower? We don't know. And all of a sudden someone's in process for 8 months. So even if you have an expensive design standard, but you're firm in it and you hold a vision, that's a known development environment that someone can invest in. I think I had a late afternoon coffee. I'm going to be quiet.
Now, all the agencies get a copy of the proposals, of every proposal?
Not every agency, because some applications aren't as complex as others, but we do our best to inform the other agencies. And, since some of the new staff has come on to the planning department, myself, we've reinstituted intergovernmental review. It's called DRC, Design Review Committee, and other, and at the city as well. And that's where we invite people face to face. We've got health department, public works, fire department, sheriff, all invited to the table to talk about a given project. And it's very helpful. And we can do it when they're brand new projects, or we can say, hey, this one's been in a while, we're almost to planning commission. Did you guys get everything you need in the report before we go? So it's a lot of communication.
But there's occasions where you said some of the agencies aren't going to need to be involved, but the ones that are Senate, do they comment?
Yes, sir.
They all do.
Even if it's no comment, we'll get a comment. Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
But
is that seem burdensome, or?
No. Well, I don't think it's too burdensome. I mean, if you send it to them, you'd think you get an acknowledgement, we received it and it's fine, or we don't have a problem with it.
We get those.
You do?
Oh, yeah.
But they're not required, though. You said no response is a response.
Well, I'm sorry. So he'll send me everything, and I get everything. I'll get the decks. Do I really care about a deck? No, but it says comments approved. Yeah, we approve it. That's a good idea. So we do have to get it and send it back. So it's either our approval with comments or no comments, but we do have to mark something on there. So I think he's saying you send that out to everybody, and they'll send either even if it's no comments, we'll say approved. Or if we do have comments, you have to meet this thing, then we'll put it in there too. But we are sending stuff back and communicating well with that. So it's a good system. I think it's working really well right now.
All the agencies are involved. That's a good thing. All right.
And actually, with our new permitting system, one of its tools is the planners will have little reminders if we haven't got a piece of mail back within the 2-week period, and we'll call them up and ask for it and do that, because we're obligated to give a singular response from the county to our applicant, whether their application's complete or incomplete. And it's more difficult to ask for additional things later after you've passed that time zone.
I guess.
That's it.
Good.
I'd really like to thank everyone that's participated tonight. I think it was a good discussion. I think it's a good first step. And I'm very glad to hear that these applications are going out and everybody's looking at them and everybody can comment in the beginning. I think that's a critical step. And I believe that with everything that's happened in Southern California in the last few months, that we're taking a lot of these things a lot more serious. And it needs to start in this room when the developments are happening. So thank you, everyone, for coming tonight. And I will entertain a motion for,
I move we adjourn.
do I have a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Hey.
Was that fast enough?